What's up, guys? I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. If you have been struggling with yo yo dieting for years and you lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, you feel like there's nothing you can do to lose weight, get in shape, keep it off long term, you're really going to benefit from listening to this episode. This is an interview with one of our clients, Nate, who's been with us at Fit for Life Academy for about a year now. We love having Nate. He's awesome. He's an awesome community member overall. And he shares his story. He's been yo-yo dieting for the past 20 years, has been struggling with his weight his whole life. He's always identified as the chubby fat kid who isn't meant to look a certain way. And over the past year, his results have been absolutely incredible. He's lost over 30 pounds of fat, built muscle, but besides that, significantly improved his relationship with food and really feels confident that the results that he's developed are things that he can maintain for the rest of his life confidently. Anyways, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the episode, and I hope you enjoy it. What's up, Nate? How's your day going, my friend?
Going well. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to chat with you because you are one of the OGs. You started with us when we launched, is it a little over a year ago?
I think you launched in April and I started in May.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So pretty much a year. We're going to have a little anniversary party for you.
I agree.
Before we start talking about anything, do you just mind sharing with the audience who you are, where you're from, what do you do, so they get to know you a little better?
Yeah. So I'm married, father of four. Been married going on 19 years. Kids from 17 to 9. So very busy household. I work full time in IT for a bank, doing all sorts of wonderful, amazing stuff. And then I also do some leadership and executive coaching on my own. So,
Yeah.
I live outside of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Cool. Nate, I'm happy that the thing you even led with is being a dad of four. And this is one thing that I definitely want to talk more about because you're obviously incredibly busy. Right?
Yep.
And unfortunately, I feel like one of the reasons why a lot of people say they can't focus on health and fitness is because of time and family and not wanting to take time away from family. So I definitely want to take a good amount of time to talk about that specifically during today's conversation, because I think it's an important topic that a lot of people can relate to. But how about you take us back to before you started working with us? When it comes to your health and fitness, what were the things that you were particularly struggling with in your day to day?
I distinctly remember the podcast or the webcast that I attended that you hosted, and you asked at the end of that what would change if, and I don't remember how you phrased it, but you asked what would change in 6 months or a year or whatever, and I said it would be my relationship with food. I grew up overweight, was made fun of for being overweight, and so going through life with that mentality all through my life has had an impact. So, I mean, I've always struggled with being the fat kid in my head. Even though I've run more than 50 races, one marathon, multiple half marathons, I've always been the fat kid in my head. So coming in and I've always looked, especially in the last couple of years, I've been looking for ways to drop the weight permanently. My weight has gone up and down over the last 20 years or so, and I needed an answer that would really fit my lifestyle, and I couldn't find it until I found you. So
Yeah, let's dig a little bit deeper into that as well, because you mentioned that for the past 20 years or so, your weight kind of yo-yoed up and down, right? Um, and we hear this message on social media a lot that people who struggle with weight are quote unquote just lazy. And you and I know that that's not necessarily true at all. Oftentimes, people that have been struggling weight for a long time are quite hardworking and have tried a bunch of stuff. And for some reason, different things just don't work. They don't feel sustainable. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the particular things that you were trying to do to lose weight. What things were you struggling with? Why do you feel like you were struggling in the first place?
I mean, mostly I had done this on my own. My wife is very health conscious. She used to be a high school teacher and she taught nutrition, and so she understands how to prepare a good meal. And my problem was I grew up in a household where for a period of time, if there was food left on the table, it wasn't going to reappear. I mean, so we ate everything we could. You cleared your plate because you just didn't know that you were going to get food again. At least, I mean, that's the mentality I had. My parents may argue with that, but um, so I mean, I had tried a lot on my own, working with her even to some extent, but I found that that doesn't work well for our relationship. At one point, I did some one-on-one coaching for about 3 months. Weight came off. I lost 15 pounds in 3 months. Was really happy, and then it all came right back. Even with my training and running all the time, the weight dropped, but it was always temporary. I mean, I'd never really learned how to control my relationship with food. And if I look at it, that's probably been the biggest change is I've moved from food, and I hate to say it, but being my coping mechanism, because it still is in some cases, to being a source of nutrition, a source of energy, and I use it for that for the most part. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. And when you say that you had a poor relationship with food, what do you mean by that specifically? And here's what I mean. Um, Obviously, we're referring to overconsumption of food contributing to weight gain, right? But what sorts of thoughts or feelings did you have day to day when you tried to restrict food?
I don't specifically remember. What I do know is that on bad days, I would go from having much too much ice cream to having much too much uh, potato chips, and back and forth. Like I would go bonkers on anything I could get my hands on, um, just to fill some hole. I'm not feeling like I'm good enough in whatever category, or I'm not feeling satisfied in at work, so I'm trying to fill that void somehow. And I would turn to food. Growing up overweight, I learned that for whatever reason that food would satisfy in some way that that need. It's obviously wrong, but that's what I somehow came to learn.
Yeah. And I don't know if like right or wrong is the correct terminology there because I feel like all people have some sort of coping mechanism for different situations, right? Some people tend to turn to food, some people turn to drugs and alcohol, some people tend to turn to things that maybe have a more positive impact on their life. But we all cope with things differently, right? Just some things obviously can contribute poorly to our health, unfortunately. I'm curious to know, did you? So it sounds like more of your struggles were around binging and overconsumption in short periods of times when you were feeling stress or sadness or any sort of emotion, correct?
Yes, more so, but it would be general overall overconsumption,
Okay.
because I still struggle with this. I struggle with leaving food on my plate. Even though I know
Yeah.
I'm full, I gotta finish this for that mentality. Even though we're not, my family is not in that situation where if I don't have the food and don't finish it, and we end up putting it in the fridge or throwing it out or whatever, there will be food again. We've got it. We're
Yeah.
fine, but it's still a mental struggle for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to an extent because I've shared this with you when I was probably 12, 13 years old. I was pretty overweight. I grew up in a Spanish household. Traditionally, in a Spanish household, also you eat all your food. Um, Whether you want to or not, you eat all your food. And I say this because I didn't necessarily struggle with binging, but I struggled with a lot of food noise. And what I mean by that is if I was in a social situation where there was food involved, I could not really like fully engage and be present in a conversation because the food was in the back of my mind. Like if you and I were talking and there's potato chips behind us, I'm just thinking about the potato chips until they're gone, right? I don't struggle with that anymore, thankfully. And I was actually, I think we were talking about that this morning. I don't know how necessarily like I improved. I think it was just practice and working on these things and learning more about nutrition and all that. But I remember clear as day, like if I went out to a restaurant with family and most of my family are smaller women. And if they ordered specifically, we used to love going out to Cheesecake Factory. It was me, my mom, my aunt, and a couple of cousins, and they would never finish their plates because Cheesecake Factory portions are huge. And I would eat my huge portion with an appetizer, and then I would eat everything everybody else left. And I would leave sick, like literally wanting to throw up. But in my mind, I was quote unquote being a man, like eating all the food and showing that I can do this, right? And it's such a silly thought, but it impacted me for so many years after, because even when I started focusing on weight loss, it was like, all right, now I have to restrict my food a little bit. Now if I'm out for the holidays or a party and there's food, it's really difficult to deal with those things. My question is, did you ever struggle with any sort of food noise in that sense?
Not that I specifically recall. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible if I were to dive into it deeper, but not that I recall.
No, it's interesting. That's why I asked, like, what did you mean by relationship with food? Because it means something different for
Yeah.
everybody, right? Like, I've never really, quote unquote, binged, and I guess you could say the restaurant thing is binging, but for a different reason, right? I also want you to share, Nate, where you were from a not just weight perspective, but how you felt physically. Because I know you remember. I remember you telling us like not knowing if you'd ever be able to run a long race again, right? Because of your knee discomfort. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so just before I joined, I'd run the Charlotte Half Marathon in 2023, I guess it was. And I had some ongoing, as we call them in run, niggles in running, just some minor issues that, and I was really considering if I was going to be able to run Charlotte again, and because it's my hometown race. I'm like, I was registered for 2024, um, and ultimately, well, no, I'm off a year anyway. I was registered for 2023 and ended up pushing it to 2024 because I couldn't do it. I tried to get out and run. I couldn't. I had some sciatica issues and just overall challenges with fitness in general. Despite attempting to run consistently, I couldn't do it. I spent about a year in physical therapy. That helped. I did lose some weight. I had double jaw surgery in March of last year, and that helped. But I think, if I were to really think about it, to go back to your previous questions, that was one of the things I remember distinctly asking my surgeon, "Can you guarantee me 20 pounds of weight loss?" And he said, "I
Hmm.
can, and it will all come back." And that the feeling of despair, like I was kind of counting on that as my this is going to get me
Yeah.
started. And I was when he said, "Yeah, but it will all come back," I was broken. Like, I can't believe that I'm going to do all this and it's not going to fix my problem. It fixed
Yeah.
my jaw problem, but it didn't fix my weight problem. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that all got was in there, and then just as a side note, I guess I did end up running in Charlotte in 2024 and cut 10 minutes off my previous time from 2 years ago,
That's
which,
awesome.
in a 13-minute or 13-mile race, I mean, that's significant. It felt good,
Yeah.
and I'm doing it again this year, despite wondering if I
Yeah.
was going to.
That's almost a minute off every mile. That's
Yeah,
huge.
and I had
Yeah.
to stop and use the
Where,
restroom, which is never something I do. But
where did you think the knee discomfort and the pain overall was stemming from? Because you said you were running fairly regularly.
so several years ago, I had fallen and I injured myself on vacation.
Okay.
And so that started the sciatica and the challenges around my leg pain, and that just continued. So I mean, that obviously, like, I couldn't. There were certain movements. Just sitting, honestly, was painful at times. Uh, so I think that's what really started it. But then, because I wasn't as active, my weight started to creep back up, and you know, it
Yeah.
hit a point where I had to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me ask you this, because you mentioned even like feeling, having feelings of despair when your doctor told you that all the weight would probably come back. When you were in that position, where you were feeling uncomfortable with where you were physically, health wise, uh, how did that affect your day to day life?
I don't recall it really affecting my day to day life.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I would still go out and play with my kids. I would still do it, and I could do everything I needed to. I wasn't doing the things I wanted to, I guess.
Hmm.
I mean, and I love running. Some people will think that's crazy, but I absolutely love getting out there, putting on my shoes, and just getting in some miles. It is so enjoyable. Even after my lower body workout this morning, I did a couple miles, and I'm regretting it now. But it is it brings me absolute joy to get out there and do it. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way you put it, right? Like I still did the things that I needed to do. I just couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. And like so much of life is like being able to do the things that we want to do, right? And unfortunately, due to a number of different reasons, not just health, sometimes we can't spend as much time doing the things that we actually want to do. Okay, so you've been with us for almost a year now. Do you mind sharing what sort of progress you've made over the past year?
Um, immediate the best. Well, not the best, but I've dropped about 30 pounds. And strength has increased substantially. My wife actually used the term buff once to describe me, and I don't quite own that, but uh,
Dude, you definitely look pretty jacked.
I'm
Last time I saw
getting
you,
there.
I'm
Like
like, damn, Nate's looking good.
I, I was ashamed to take my shirt off in in front of anybody. I mean that would be my wife, but I like at the beach, no way. I hated the way I looked in the mirror before, and now I'm learning to be okay with it. There's still some progress I want to make, but I'm there. I'm getting there. I feel like I've got some of the good habits. I've got the workout plan, making progress to make it happen.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. So we're down about 30 pounds in the past year. First off, what would you say to somebody who says, only 30 pounds in a year? That seems like so little.
Maybe it is, especially when you look back and I lost 15 pounds in 3 months working with that other
Yeah.
coach, right? And so I should learn. I should be down more, and maybe I should, but I am looking at this as a more of a long term. I've got to make this stick. I don't want something where I lose 45, 50 pounds in 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and then it comes back. I really want to change my life to make this work for me for the long run. So yeah, 30 pounds isn't a lot, but I don't restrict myself. I eat what I want. I just change how much of it I want. If I want chocolate, I'm going to have some chocolate. I just have a little bit. Um, so I if someone really comes and says you really lost 30 pounds, I mean, come on. I don't care. I saw my brother for the first time in about 2 years a few months ago, and I remember walking in the door to his house, and he looked at me like, "Who are you?" And unfortunately, I was on the phone at the times, but the look on his face was one of absolute shock. Um, like, who is this guy? Because I've changed substantially in just in the last year.
Yeah. I would challenge you and say that 30 pounds in a year is a lot. And why do I say that? Because I think a lot of people have unrealistic expectations of what sustainable weight loss should be, right? Like, could you objectively lose more weight still in a sustainable way in a year? Of course, right? But 30 pounds, man, like, the thing is, it's not just about the 30 pounds. I'm sure, Nate, you feel confident that you could keep these 30 pounds
Yes.
off because the way that you're doing it isn't overly restrictive. You've been able to improve your relationship with food. And that's what I tend to try to drill into people's heads. And it's difficult when people are just very focused on the outcome, right? Because, like, it's hard to relate to if somebody's feeling a particular pain and they want to get rid of that pain. And for them, the pain is the 40, 50, 60 pounds they need to lose. I can see why there's so much emphasis on that. But typically, what I try to ask people is, let's say you could lose 50, 60 pounds in a year. Would that make you happy? Yeah. Would it make you happy if you regained it over the next year after that? No. Now, what if you only lost 20 to 30 pounds in a year, but you felt confident that what you were doing felt sustainable? On top of that, it felt enjoyable. You could keep doing it. And it might take you another year to lose the weight, but then you're never going to put it back on. Would that make you happy? And they're like, yeah. It's like, okay, that's the perspective we need to
Yep.
take, right?
Absolutely.
Now, out of curiosity, Nate, because you mentioned if you want some chocolate, you have it. You just have a little bit. What's improved your relationship with food?
I mean, some of it is just the habit program that you have built into the coaching into the Fit for
Hmm.
Life process, um, and really, I think it took someone pounding it into me, and not like, I mean, that sounds negative, but I don't mean it that way. But pounding into my head that you can have whatever you want. You just need to have proper portions. You need to look at how much protein you're having. You need to have a better understanding of what the consumption is and what you're actually putting into your body. I mean, I remember several years ago when my sister-in-law was in a fitness competition, and she said she was eating food for energy. She didn't care how it tasted. She was just eating it because she had to. And to some extent, I'm almost to that point. I enjoy my food, don't get me wrong, but it is a source of energy, not a source of satisfaction most of the time. I've got to work on that last part, but yeah.
Yeah, I think food should be both, right? I think we just need to be able to manage how frequently we try to just get satisfaction from
Yep.
food, because like food is a big part of what we do
Mhm.
culturally, right? Like realistically, 90% of the times that I do something for fun with friends or family, it involves food, and the food should add to the occasion, right? I think it gets a little bit out of hand when we're using food for enjoyment just every single day and it's not a special occasion or anything like that, right? But curious because I doubt that just following a habit program alone has been what's contributed mostly to you improving your relationship with food, because you've worked with a coach before. I would assume that your coach probably talked a little bit about calories and making healthy food choices in moderation. Um, what else has changed?
Um, for me, it's been a bit of a mindset shift to just a
Hmm.
recognition of, do I need this? I mean, last night's actually a prime example. Last night I was making some viral peanut butter cup Reese's peanut butter cups that I've seen. We'll see how they turn out. Uh,
Are you going to share it? You have to share that with the community if they come out good.
well, it's going to depend on how my kids think.
Okay. Okay.
I've got my youngest son loves Reese's peanut butter cups, so he'll be the sampler. But I'll let you know. But I was making those like I don't know, whatever. Like I wanted some ice cream, so I had some ice cream, and then I had some of that. Like I spiraled a little bit, and I recognized I was doing it. So it's that, hey, you're doing it again, and I'm able to stop myself. Not saying that I don't start, obviously, but I'm able to stop myself faster than I used to. Next step for me is to keep moving that up so that I can stop myself before I even start. But that's a
Yeah.
work in process.
It sounds like you've essentially just been able to develop way more self
Mhm.
awareness around your behaviors with
Absolutely.
food.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would also challenge you to say that, like, I don't think it's necessary to stop it altogether. Because, like, I do that. Dude, I have probably chocolate, ice cream, stuff like that on a daily basis. I just, similar to you, I just have a little bit of it, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And
where I'm challenged is I will, like, I wanted some ice cream, so I had some ice cream, but I had more than I should have. And then I had a peanut butter cup. I didn't need that. I knew I didn't need that.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
that
yeah,
normally I would have had two or three. I could have, and I stopped myself after one. So I'm like, okay. So it's that process, circumventing the spiral, I guess, if that makes sense.
yeah. And so much of it, Nate, too, is like, I feel like the whole topic of mindset is a funny thing because objectively the outcome or the behavior can be the same, but the way you view the behavior um, influences different things. Even like the frequency at which you
Mhm.
do things, right? And here's what I mean: like I also very frequently recognize that I probably eat too many sweets at night that I don't need. But even I'm very mindful about it, and I'll stop in the moment and just be like, "Why am I doing this?" And then when I really think about it, sometimes it's just like, I don't know. I just want a little bit more ice cream. And I'm like, does that really make a big difference if I have a little bit more ice cream right now? It's like, no. Do I really want it? Yeah. So just have it. And then typically when I have that mindset, I just allow myself to have as much as I want. The next day I'm like, shit, I probably shouldn't have eaten that much ice cream. But the behavior doesn't repeat
Yeah.
itself. Right. And I bring that up because I feel like sometimes, Nate, and maybe you might you might relate to this before you started working with us, of like you try to really restrict stuff, And it's like, no, 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 no. And then you just like end up eating it more because now you crave it a
Yes.
lot really frequently. That's why I say that the mindset thing is a funny thing in general.
I remember I used to put little notes all around my house. Is it worth it? I remember like I had hung that in our pantry next to all the snacks. Is it worth it? And it helped me. Um, but like right now, it wouldn't help me because I need more than that because I've moved past those external cues. It's now like I feel like it's more internal. I need to work on the internal, which maybe the external cues would have helped, or maybe they still could. But I feel like for me, I'm at a different point, and I don't. So I mean, we have closet candy. So I mean, it's across the house. So if I want some candy, I'm gonna have to go across the house to get it, and it's in the
Yeah.
closet so that my kids can't get to it. But so it's little things like that, just to help structure
Yeah.
my home in a way that I can
Yeah.
still do it.
And that actually, so, sorry, you finish,
Well,
please.
yeah, so I can still do it, but I just have to put a little more effort in.
Yeah, I was going to say that then starts to go into the topic of like strategic things that people can do to improve food behaviors, right? Because part of it is like theoretically, what should nutrition look like, right? So, what does a healthy diet look like? It looks like X, Y, Z. If those of you guys listening are interested in knowing what X, Y, Z is, like, just check out any of my podcast episodes because I pretty much repeat it every single episode. But there's objectively what a healthy diet should look like. And then there's the mindset of how you should approach that. And then there are small little strategies to make it easier to actually do that. And proximity to food is one that has a massive impact. Actually, one thing that we started incorporating as of a couple of months ago, Nate, anytime we start working with a new client, one of the first behaviors that we ask them to, or one of the first things that we ask them to do in general before even starting coaching, is to tell us what their food environment looks like and how they can modify it, and we give them some
Wow.
tips. Because if you have cookies on your countertop, it doesn't matter if you're trying to track your calories and eat more protein. You're going to eat a cookie every single time you walk by the kitchen, right? So you having like a candy pantry that's far away, it's such a smart thing to do because you're just less likely to consume those things. And it's not a conscious thing that you're doing either, right? So kudos for you for acknowledging that as well. There's like a number of these little strategies that can make it so much easier to stick to your nutritional targets. I also wanted to ask you about training specifically because if I remember correctly, resistance training wasn't something that you were doing regularly at all, correct?
Correct. I was running multiple days a week. When I was running consistently, it was usually 3 days a week. At one point, several years ago, I was doing resistance training a couple of days a week as well. And it was probably when I was having success on my own, but not in the last 5 years have I done any resistance training until I
Yeah.
joined.
Tell me about it. I don't want to even ask any specific questions because I just want to hear your perspective on how it's affected your
Well, I mean,
life.
and I say that, but then I had joined a group coaching gym for about a year,
Hmm.
spending hundreds of dollars a month to do this. And I remember once picking up, like the coach said, you need to do your bench press with 45 pounds on the ground so that you have the support of the ground and you'll be able to do it. I'm like, no, there's no way. I can't. I can barely lift the 45-pound dumbbells. And now I'm doing incline bench press with 55s, and like I hate to say it, but it's nothing, but I can do that, and it's a
Yeah.
huge reward. Like I love feeling sore. I remember several years ago where I wrote a personal vision, and one of the statements in there is I worked out hard enough today and I feel a little sore and I love it. I like that feeling. I like hurting just a little bit knowing that I pushed myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's phenomenal. I feel stronger. I've got well, my 14-year-old daughter is all about building muscle and showing off how her bicep look, and then my
That's
and
cool.
so it's funny. She'll flex and she's look, and I'm like, yeah, but look. She's like, well, you're a guy, but I actually have biceps. I can see veins pop occasionally. Not and like there's just little things that make me, as funny as it is, very happy to see on my body.
Yeah, no, that's definitely super cool, man. I also wanted to ask, how has lifting impacted your ability to run? And I bring that up because we have a lot of people who like love running or love doing more cardiovascular based exercises. And I was like, trust me, lifting will benefit those things
Yeah.
tremendously.
Well, this morning's run, I mean, I think went out, I did 3 miles, and I was just doing 3 miles. I wasn't running fast. There was no time. I was just to get in a few miles. Um, Prior to joining, I was pushing 10, 11, 12 minute miles. And it was often a struggle to get there. And when I say 10, 11 minute, 12-minute miles, that was over 3 miles, 2 miles. It was not long distances. This morning's I did 3 miles. Again, it was just to get in some miles. And I think I averaged like 9.5-minute miles. So some
Nice.
of that is obviously losing the weight, but the strength there, I don't feel as fatigued as quickly. Uh, and I credit that with the lifting.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think has allowed you to stay consistent with lifting?
For me, it's the community. I feel a lot of responsibility to the community to make sure that I'm doing it. I haven't missed a workout. I've had to move some, but I don't think I've missed a workout yet. Um, because I feel like I have to. Someone out there, I don't. I doubt any of you are looking at it, but I feel like I need to check that box every day. Uh, and some of it is I'm paying for it. I gotta make sure I'm using it as best as I can.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it because um, I think the community is something really unique and valuable about what we do. So I'm happy you answered that question by talking about community because community is obviously something that's relatively unique and something we put a lot of focus on, right? And I think the community is a super valuable component of what we do. And it's interesting because every time we talk to a potential new client and I express what's included with our coaching program, like I always ask, like, can we count on you to be part of the community? And they're always like, I don't know, like that's not really what I want. But then people start becoming involved in the community and they see how beneficial it is. I think specifically for making it fun,
Yep.
motivation, and consistency, right? Because you get accountability from the community as well, especially if they have somebody like you tagging them on posts every day. But time and time again, we've had people who have worked with us and then they're done working with us and they give us feedback and they're like, I didn't think the community would be that beneficial, but it really is. I wanted to ask you, what sort of impact has the community had on your consistency?
It is my dare I say it's my social media uh, engagement of the day. It's like I love the community. Being able to connect with people all over the world, and feeling like they care about my progress. And when I'm able to post, hey, I hit this PR or I did this little thing today, and having people chime in, and that's awesome, that's great, congratulations. Having a community of people who are all working towards similar goals is phenomenal. I mean, it's so much so that I just talked to one of my team members who I absolutely adore, and she joined because she recognizes that value as well. It's I can't say enough good. I don't know if I'm saying it well enough, but I can't say enough good
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Who's your team member, if you don't mind me asking?
Vanessa, Vanessa,
Okay,
she
cool.
just joined a month and a
Um,
half ago or so.
yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And thank you. I was going to say, in terms of your progress as well, because you mentioned it's contributed so much to your progress, and something I wanted to mention earlier that I forgot, because we were talking about losing 30 pounds in a year. I also want to emphasize that um, all weight loss is not just fat
Right.
loss, right? Or all what I'm trying to say is that the 30 pounds I don't think is truly reflective of all the changes that you've made, because I would bet money that if you did a body composition assessment, you've lost more than 30 pounds of body
Yeah.
fat, specifically because you've built
Yeah.
muscle, right? And like visually, it looks like you've lost more than 30 pounds. And I bring that up because I think when people approach weight loss with the perspective of it's okay if it's slower, and actually it's more beneficial if it's slower, you actually see substantially better improvements in body composition because you can prioritize training, you can get stronger, you can build muscle. Even if you train consistently, if you lose weight really quickly, you just aren't eating sufficient food to support the improvements in muscle mass. So I really wanted to bring up that point because I forgot to mention it
Now
earlier.
you got me thinking. I just pulled out my phone to check like my body composition. I want to see now. I haven't checked my specifically like my uh, So my skeletal, like, and this is Samsung, so who knows? Because I use the real smartphone, not an iPhone. Um, but my fat mass has dropped from 50, 60 pounds roughly to uh, 40 pounds. So I mean, which is huge for me. So you're right. Body fat. I mean, the percentage is down from uh, 30 pounds to 20 pounds. So, or
Yeah.
percent, 30% to 20.
30% to 20%.
Yeah. So I mean, that's huge to and so I do yeah, I want the weight to come off, but I also know that muscle weighs more than fat, and so it's more about I want to look better. Like I
Yeah.
mentioned this morning, I have a number in mind that I want to see on the scale, just to see it once. That's all I want.
You'll get there,
Yeah.
Nate. It just takes time. You'll get there. I'm confident you will. Um, okay, let's transition the conversation a little bit because I think this is a really important topic um, that I'd love for you to share a little bit about. How do you manage this whole health and fitness thing, having a full time job, having four kids, being an involved parent? Uh, Specifically, I asked that, like I mentioned at the beginning, because a lot of people struggle with time management and knowing how to prioritize, right? So, how do you do it personally?
I one advantage that I have is my job is based 2 hours behind me, so I do have a little bit more extra fluff in my mornings to get up, get the kids out the door before having to get in my workout. But I also work later into the evening, so I try to front load my day with as much physical activity as I possibly can. I get in my walk, I get in my run, I get in my workout, whatever it is in the morning because I'm working until 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Um, and then as far as my kids, I like the example I'm now setting for my kids. I've got my kids who want to do pull-ups. One of my kids is for a couple of weeks he was like, I'm going to do 10 pull-ups a day. He can barely do one, but he's doing them with the bands, and that's okay. Like that encouragement and seeing him wanting to be active is a huge reward. So it's just, I do everything I can to fit it in. And like I said, I make it up the priority of the morning. And some days it doesn't work out. So I figure out a way to schedule it because my fitness is my top priority for myself. I've got to take care of myself first and the rest will fit in.
Yeah, it really does come down to prioritization, right? Um, and it's a difficult thing to talk about because you never want to tell somebody who's struggling, like, oh, you just don't have your priorities straight. Because oftentimes, too, it's not knowing how to do this stuff given having a hectic schedule. Sometimes people think that eating healthy and working out needs to be like all encompassing and they don't have time for anything else. And that's not necessarily true either, right? Based off your own experience, Nate, for somebody who struggles with time management and they're super busy, what are maybe like 2 or 3 tips that you would share that might be helpful?
The first thing I would say is really look at whether you're prioritizing your plan or let's say prioritizing your plan or planning your priorities. So a
Mm,
lot of people will just accept here's all these meetings I've got to attend whatever, but and you just say yes to all of that. Well, what are the priorities? So schedule on a Friday evening, on a Saturday, on a Sunday, whatever outside of the chaos of your life, schedule when you're going to put in your workout and make it happen. Put it on your calendar, block it out on all your calendars. I have 3 different calendars I manage my own, my family, and my work. So I will put it on all 3 calendars if necessary to make sure that it is blocked and it's going to happen. So, first and foremost, plan your priorities rather than prioritize your plan. Second is to do all of that work outside of the chaos. Do it on a Sunday evening, do it on a Friday. I have my time scheduled Friday afternoons to take some time and what pre-week planning is what we call it, to plan out the week and put things where they belong, rightfully belong.
yeah. And so many people, I'm all with you. Like, I'm all about living by my calendar. And I could definitely be better about it. But I know that when I prioritize putting things in my calendar, I'm so much more productive, not just with workouts, but with work. I feel like I actually have more time, which is huge because I feel like people also have way more time than they think they do. It just feels chaotic because there's no organization and you're being pulled in a million different directions at once. I would also say, Nate, aside from prioritizing, which is incredibly important, I think it's also really important to be able to set the appropriate boundaries, right? Because it's so easy to say, like, this is my priority and this is the time I'm going to get my workout in. And then something comes up and you just say yes. And I think learning how to say no is a difficult skill, but a very important one as
Yeah,
well.
I was funny during my run this morning. I was listening to a podcast about that very topic. Uh, we we tend to say yes without explanation. Yes, I can do that. We don't ever explain why we can do that. But when it comes to no, we feel like we have to provide an explanation. But as we all know, no is a complete sentence. And maybe the option is no, I can't do that time at this time, and I'm willing to help you at this other time, or I can't do it here, but I know someone who can. Redirect, or just say, I'm sorry, I can't help you, and leave it at that. But you're right, boundaries and understanding those boundaries is essential. So when it comes to your workouts or whatever your priorities are, make sure they happen and have room in your calendar for some things to happen. For the example, for this podcast, I scheduled an hour and a half on my calendar to make sure that I had plenty of time so that if something happened, I could respond accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people are really bad with time
Mhm.
management, which is an important skill, right? Like, how many friends do you have that say, I will be there at 10, and 10:15 rolls around, they're still not
Yep.
there? And it's like not a one time thing, it's every single time. And it's not even that they're being intentional about it, it's that they really don't have the skill of like getting somewhere on time. It blows my
Yeah.
mind. Um, I'm thankful enough that I feel like that's just a skill that was baked into me as a kid by my mom, because like we were always on time for everything and she really focused on that. So like I kind of just am that way. And it's funny, Nate, that I always think about this. Like, people think that getting in shape is just about nutrition and exercise, and objectively it is. But it's all of these other soft skills that influence your ability to actually do the nutrition and exercise stuff that are really important. Um, I'd love for you to touch on this because you have a lot of these skills outside of nutrition and fitness as well. You work a lot on the mindset side of things. You're very into self education. Um, I forgot where I was going with the question, but essentially what I wanted to bring up is, how much do you feel like you've benefited from developing skills outside of just eat this way, exercise this way, from the community, from the group calls? And I bring this up because I have a hard time expressing to people how beneficial these additional things are and what are all the things that we actually work on unless somebody actually experiences working with
Yeah.
us.
Um, so for years, I'm certified. I've got 8 or 9 different certifications in um, leadership, in personal development, in all sorts of things. So I should be able to do this on my own, entirely on my own, right? And every coach needs a coach. And to a large extent, I look at the community as my coach. Yeah, I've got the 4 of you and Ceci and Brent and Bernardo, um, but that community is there constantly. And not saying that the coaches don't chime in and aren't there, they are, but it's the community that's there to check in, to help, to support, to reinforce. If there's if I were to, I mean, one of my challenges are Sunday afternoons. I tend to go off kilter on my foods because I'm bored. I have nothing else to do, so I might as well snack. And I know that if I were to say something on the community, say, "Hey guys, I need help," there'd be 1 or 2 or 3 people who would tag me on posts Sunday afternoon. Hey Nate, remember to stay on track. That's that accountability partner, that friendship that we all need, and it helps. It really, really does to keep us on track. Yeah, I can't overemphasize how beneficial that is.
Yeah. And I think a simple way to put it is like, how often are we really successful at something that we do completely on our
Mhm.
own? Like, not that frequently, right? Um, Even like entrepreneurship or whatnot with my business, people say entrepreneurship is lonely, and it is, because it's hard to relate to a lot of people since a lot of people don't have the same struggles. But at the end of the day, I lean on so many people to help me. my team, but also mentors and having I'm part of a community of small entrepreneurs, because it's like so helpful to just have people to bounce ideas off of and share things. Because so many times when we're struggling with something, we don't even just like need an answer. We just need somebody to hear us out, right? And just share like, man, I'm struggling with this. And it's like, I hear you. I'm struggling with that too. That there's no solution
Yeah.
there, but I like immediately feel better, right? Um, I can't stress enough also the benefit of not trying to do everything on your own, because the people that say they do it on their own, for example, like I would say fitness is something I've done quote unquote on my own, but that's a lie, because I've always gone to the gym with a friend and I've had friends that care about fitness, and my wife cares about eating healthy and working out. And so like I have that support as well. I don't think there's anything in my life that I truly do completely on my own and I do well, because I don't know. I feel like obviously as humans, we're social creatures, and that social aspect makes the whole process more
Yep.
enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, cool, mate. I wanted to wrap up the conversation by touching on what you mentioned with your son liking doing pull-ups now, because I think that one thing that's really cool about taking on this whole health and fitness endeavor is how it positively impacts those around us as well. If you listen to the episode that I did with Axel, he shared the same thing. He was like, "My son loves working out now, and now my son is like the strong one in his friend group, and his friends now want to work out." So, how has your journey so far impacted those around you, and what are some things that you've heard from friends and family?
Uh, well, I mean, so I'm going to start with the last question first. Last night I saw my brother-in-law, and the first thing he said was, "Wow, you're looking slim and trim."
That's
Little
sweet.
things. I mean, and I saw him at Christmas, and so I mean, it hasn't been that long, but enough that he said something. Um, as far as the impact, like I've got, like I said, 4 kids. My oldest two, my 2 daughters, tend to be somewhat active. My second daughter is loves to do everything. She's involved in every sport she can get herself into, but I think it's mainly for the social aspect, which is great for her. But
Mhm.
she's involved. My older son is very active. He's running the neighborhood, playing every sport. But just my younger one, he's a one sport guy. He does soccer and he sits around pretty much playing games other than that. So he's not the most active kid, but he's the one who's like, I'm going to do pull-ups, or he'll come in and he'll want to do bench press, or he'll just sit and I'll ask him for help doing the dumbbell leg curls because I can't really easily do those on my own. So I'll ask him to, set up the weight for me or hold it, and involving him especially has been helpful because he'll see me doing things and he'll want to try it. Or, I'll set up the pull-up bar and he's like, hey, I can do that. I want to try that. And it's helping him see a good example. When I was a kid, I remember my dad drinking protein drinks. He would throw raw eggs in a blender and drink it. I can't even imagine. But I remember him doing that for a short period of my younger years, and but I don't remember anything beyond that. So life got in the way and whatever for my dad. But I like it's now a priority. It's becoming part of my identity, and my kids know that. They know that when I say I'm going to go work out, they're going to hear some thumping around. They can come in and go. They can see what's happening. Whereas before, I used to hide behind closed doors because I didn't want anybody to see me. And now it's no, I'm going to be open with them, especially so that I can set that example. And my boss, he was the first person to say, I'm really proud of you, which is shocking. My boss isn't a very personal person, and he said that. And so people have noticed, and they ask, what have you done? What are you doing? How's this working? And it's been phenomenal just to have people see it, and that reinforces the positive behaviors, right? To keep going. So,
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And it just feels good when people acknowledge our hard work too,
yep.
right? As much as we say we do stuff for ourselves, and we definitely do, it feels really good when people acknowledge what we're doing more than almost the results themselves. At least personally for me, like if my wife acknowledges something I'm doing or friends acknowledge something I'm doing, like for some reason, it just feels so much better than even like the actual progress itself. So I'm happy you've been able to experience that too. I always say that one of the things that I'm most thankful for my parents is that they were super like into living a healthy lifestyle. Um, on the exercise side of things, maybe not the food side of things, but I pretty much grew up in the gym as a kid. Like I grew up in the daycare at the gym. My mom was always at the gym. My dad would come home from work when I was a little kid and like knock out push-ups and stuff like that at home. So I always saw them being active. And my dad was pretty muscular, and I always saw him as like a superhero. And I was like, I want to be strong like that, right? So I definitely think that my consistency and passion for fitness definitely started by just seeing my parents do it. And I'm happy. It sounds like at the very least, your younger son is experiencing that as well with you, which is super
Yeah,
cool.
it's awesome.
Um, Nate, before we hop off, the last question I want to ask, which is um, maybe a little bit different than some of the questions I've asked, is before you joined us, did you have any doubts or anything that almost made you not join?
My doubt was personal. Like, can I really stick to this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had tried so many things. My confidence, I don't want to say it was shattered, but it was really low in a lot of ways because I had tried so many things to get control of my weight, to get control of this, to get control of that. And I never was successful. I mean, it would always come back. I would always revert to whatever, bad habit or whatever. So I really doubted whether I could stick to it. Um, but again, that community aspect, it has been phenomenal for me specifically because it feels like I've got this group of friends. I mean, especially those who've been, the OGs, I've been with and spent hours with on, some of the calls, just being able to engage with them, to a large extent and on a personal level. Um,
Yeah.
and that is, I mean, obviously gone now. That confidence is there. I believe I can stick to what I'm doing. In fact, I mean, over the holidays, I kind of went off track. I didn't track my meals. I wasn't working out as consistently because of holidays and being away, but my weight didn't change much. I mean, it stayed fairly consistent, and I'm confident now that I can, if I were to stop, being part of Fit for Life, which I can't imagine doing, uh, I would be able to maintain these habits.
Yeah. I'm so glad you even brought that up specifically in terms of a personal doubt, because that's probably the most common personal doubt, right? Especially like with our general messaging and the things we talk about, like we tend to work primarily with people who have been struggling for a long period of time. And the internal thought is always like, can I do this? Because most people have tried a lot of things. And this is not for marketing reasons, but I'm a strong believer that you can do things, right? Like even in the podcast episode that I released this last week, and for people listening, that won't make sense because this will be released in a couple of weeks. But the one where I shared my personal story, like one of the big lessons that I tried sharing that I strongly believe in is that your past does not determine your future, right? Your past can inform or influence your future, but I definitely am a strong believer that your past does not determine your future. Um, and obviously, like we can take that sort of theory and apply it to like bigger struggles in life and smaller struggles in life, right? Uh, and body image and weight loss can be a pretty big thing for a lot of people. But just because you've struggled with many things in the past, it doesn't necessarily mean it's something innately wrong with you either, right? Sometimes, and most often, I think people just use methodologies that are kind of destined to fail from the beginning because they're not sustainable. They don't have support. They don't have accountability. But yeah. Anyways, Nate, I appreciate you taking time to chat today. Before we get off, is there anything else you want to share?
Just, for lack of a better term, I'm going to advertise a little bit for Fit for Life. It has been transformational for me. It has changed my life and not saying that I haven't put in the work, because I know I have, but because I've got the knowledge, I've got the community, I've got the coaches who can now support me to do this for the rest of my life. Like I said, I am confident now that I could do this without all the program, because I've learned so much. And yet the program is going to stay a part of my life as long as I possibly can make it.
Thank you, Nate. I appreciate you sharing that. And again, appreciate your time today, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure.